Welcome back. Now, how can you accelerate automation and innovation for digital service providers? It's something that Microsoft, TM Forum and ETI software have been working on together, customizing the Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365 products to enable telco-specific application design and development. To find out more, I spoke with Microsoft's Principal Program Manager for Industry Accelerators in the media and telecommunications sector, Martin Wahl, and ETI's Vice President of Sales and Marketing and host of the Broadband Bunch podcast, Pete Pizzutillo. I started by asking Martin, what can telcos learn from the way other industries have adapted and innovated?
I think we can learn a lot from our counterpart industries, for example, in healthcare. Healthcare has been going through a tremendous transformation and forced to do so mostly due to this pandemic of having to look at legacy systems with isolated data that's sort of locked in place and still provide new types of services, remote services for patients, access to data for care providers. Hospitals and clinics need to have access across the spectrum of provider institutions. And so they've really tried to figure out a way to combine data, to create data models that are standardized in nature, to create a 360-degree view of the patient, both for care providers, but also so that the patient feels that they're getting the best, most quality, personalized service. I think the telecommunication industry can learn a lot from the healthcare industry in this respect. And Microsoft and our partners have been looking at how can we bring new modern technologies to this to the healthcare industry. And I think the telecom sector can learn a lot from it. Certainly, we have legacy systems, data locked in silos, the need to provide personalized services to our consumers and provide access to data to our employees. So there's a lot that can be learned from this, and I'm positive that the telecom sector is moving forward aggressively to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also that sort of customer centricity, that of course is inherent in healthcare, must be equally important for telcos.
It is critically important to telcos. Now, unlike the healthcare sector where a patient is sort of committed to a provider for a longer period of time, the telecommunications sector has to be wary of the fact that they need to delight their customers. And customers are somewhat fickle. They will move from provider to provider as their needs change. And so I think providers need to continuously be aware of what the customer is doing, what the customer is enjoying, what the customer is not liking, and provide access to that data, not just for the employees who directly service customers, but all of the parts of the telecom space, the network operators, the field service technicians, the executives, the marketing departments, all of them have to have this 360 view of the customer.
Yeah, love it. Thank you very much indeed. Pete, turning to you if we can, making sure we're left with happy subscribers, I guess something that we sort of alluded to there, is something that you've spoken about a lot in your work. And Martin, of course, you've spoken about wanting to delight the customer. So from the consumer's perspective, what does our discussion today really mean for them?
Yeah, I think Martin touched a lot on what's happening in different industries. Healthcare is an example, retail is another example, and the consumer expectation is shifted, right? And they know that other industries can be more personal, can be omni-channel, can track them, empower them, right? And I think in an industry that's traditionally has a really poor customer satisfaction record, cable and internet services, that's a big gap, right? And the systems and the data and the processes can no longer be an obstacle preventing you to provide what consumers expect, right? Most people expect to be able to not have to deal with customer service reps, be able to empower to add services, to find different providers, to manage their bills, to troubleshoot just from their cell phone. So being able to do that isn't a big leap in other industries, but in this industry it has been. And that's really what we're seeing the focus is that tension between trying to reduce the friction from the technology and the processes to be able to meet the customers and keep them happy.
It's curious, isn't it, that our smartphone is so often the window into convenience for all other services, and yet bizarrely for telcos itself, it appears to be, as you said, low on the level of customer service.
Yeah, it's quite a paradox there that you're describing. But yeah, I think, from managing your homes to working remotely, I mean, your cell phone is basically your new laptop, right? Your control center, and being able to extend that into the services that are really critical to making customers or keeping customers happy has been a lot of people are being able to do it. I'm not saying that the industry isn't there yet, but more and more as we move down the food chain to different size providers, need to be able to bring that capability to their customers.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, you're both already, you're working with providers to get those solutions in action. Going forward, what are your immediate focus points in the short term? Martin, if we could start with you, sir.
Yeah, Microsoft is trying very hard to give immediate access to service providers around the world to technology that we have been developing for business for many, many years. There's no reason why you have to lift and shift existing infrastructure that you have in place to still take advantage of today's modern technology. For example, artificial intelligence. Can I use AI to help me learn something more about my customers that I can't find easily? Like who's more likely to churn away? Who's reduced their service? Can I use AI or machine learning technologies to find the heat maps of where my customers are located versus where they're not so inundated with my service, and yet I've expended a lot of capital to invest in my networks there? So we're really trying to, in the short term, to show service providers, and the easiest way to do that is to work with partners like ETI, is to say, you have access to this technology. You can install and deploy very quickly new types of applications that don't require a lot of heavy work on your part, but rather get you going to meet some sort of immediate and specific business goal right away. That's really what our short-term focus is. In the long term, of course, Microsoft believes that we'll continue to innovate at light speed to provide new technologies in VR and AR and hands-free technologies and natural language communications, in all kinds of business collaborative tools. That's the long-term strategy. But in the short term, there's a lot that's still available that I think a lot of service providers haven't yet availed themselves of.
Fantastic. And Pete.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, the disruption and evolution that Martin's describing inside of managing a service provider business is happening as well in the network and in the home, right? There are a lot of technology that are from the edge, people call it from the edge, or from the Internet of Things, devices within the home. And going back to consumer expectations is people want those new devices, whether it's from Amazon, Eero, or from Bloom. There's a lot of capability that new disruptors are bringing to the marketplace. So the challenge becomes for the service providers is, how do you manage those new technologies? How do you adopt those into a legacy infrastructure, right? And how are you able to monitor and take the information that you're getting and providing to your customers and roll that back into a singular view? As Martin talked about before, having a single pane of glass or a 360-degree view of your customer, there's a lot more information that's able to be rolled up to provide better business intelligence, to apply the AI and automation concepts that Microsoft is bringing as a plug and play into this business model. It's a really fascinating time. So I would say the takeaway is just trying to keep up with all that. There's a lot of demand from the industry. There's a lot of innovation happening, and things are moving very quickly. So we're running as fast as we can.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. In fact, there is a lot of fast-paced transformation, exactly as you just said, Pete, both in terms of internal processes and externally in terms of interactions and engagements that providers are having to get their heads around. How exactly do your tools and expertise aid in that transformation, and how are you helping make that transformation fast and effective? Pete, if you go first.
Yeah, I think we look at it in three areas. There's really about platforms, modular deployment, and standards, right? And I'll let Martin talk about the platforms there. But being able to have an end-to-end solution, but at the same time being able to step in at little slices of function. So a modular deployment helps people do a couple things. One, solve the biggest pain first without having to eat the elephant in one bite, right? And being able to then prove out the return, which then funds the next step and moves to the next step. So that's really been a powerful capability for us to help accelerate digital transformation. I think COVID brought a lot of that into play, where digital transformation was compressed and people didn't think they would be able to do it, but they found ways to improve their customer service capability or their field service capability without changing everything end to end. And eventually they'll step into moving the next department, the next function, the next capability. The other piece of that would be the standards, right? I mean, I think that's the question a lot of people are looking at and saying, hey, our networks evolved this way, our business evolved this way over 10, 15, 30 years of growth and mergers and acquisitions. We've kind of always done it this way. How should we be doing it? And I think the TM Forum work is really a great example of having expertise from across the globe and up and down the food chain to be able to say, this is the best practice. This is what your data model should look like, right? This is the business processes and workflow should look like. And people are taking that to heart because adopting that, while it's a change management issue, they can't reinvent quick enough to get there. So being able to leverage standards and open, as well as the open data architecture, I think are really two great accelerators that we're seeing help move this to move providers into the marketplace.
Thank you very much. Martin, that same question to you. So just to reiterate, how exactly do your tools and expertise aid in that transformation that people are going through? And how are you helping make that transformation fast and effective?
Well, first of all, Microsoft has invested substantially in creating a platform upon which you can use to build applications. And this platform, which we call the Power Platform, this is not intended to be a heavy development rich system. This is a low code or even no code application platform for industry to develop applications that are specifically meeting certain business challenges. So this is secure, this is safe, it runs in the cloud, it's very quick, it has modern user interface capabilities, it glues into all of the technology that we offer in AI and ML and VR and AR and chat bots. So that's the first part, is we're providing this platform that's available. But the second thing is that we're investing quite heavily in industry itself. We have divided ourselves up into vertical industries. I head up our media and entertainment, as well as the telecommunications sector. And we're spending a lot of time looking at specifically how can these tools help these sectors. For the telecom space, this means looking at the technologies like customer service, field service, mapping and network resource management, billing and packaging, and ways to improve the sales flow. So we invest in creating these industry-focused solutions that we put forward and say to the industry through our partnerships with companies like ETI and other companies around the world, hey, you don't have to be a hardcore developer. You don't even have to have an internal IT development shop. You can develop these applications and deploy them very quickly using cloud to get you there and solve some problem in the short term and possibly in the long term. I think what we have found with many customers is they've deployed so many different vendor solutions over the years that each of them runs on their own independently. They don't talk to each other. And yet the data is so vitally important to understanding their customers and to their business. So we're looking for ways to bridge that data gap, to provide application technology, to provide modern interfaces, and to give our customers a leg up in the space without having to be heavy system integrators or developers themselves.
Of course, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Now, you speak about sort of helping providers shift their internal processes. Is there a real-world example of this that stands out for you, Pete?
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned COVID before, and a lot of what our service provider customers were looking to do were protect their customers while still being able to serve their, protect their employees while serving their customers, right? So how do you do that? How do you make sure that if there's a field service call that's out there or customer service trying to troubleshoot, and being able to shift from manual processes where you typically would send out a field service representative to do an investigation on site, we're able to bring automation to the table so that what that does is it empowers the customer service rep to be able to hand remotely much more capabilities in terms of troubleshooting, helping the customer on the first pass resolution, right? And similarly, not throwing it over the wall to the field service team where they're going to have to go send out a truck, right? And being able to have the sort of field service tech still be out on the street, but doing as much installation, pushing firmware upgrades, testing, activations from as remote as possible, and not having to go within the room, or within the house. So that's been a really interesting shift in terms of moving from manual to automated. The outcome of that is you protect your workers, right? And there's a tremendous cost savings and response time savings. It's all add up into helping keep customers happy.
Of course, fantastic stuff. Now, look, we're coming to the end of our time, but I just want to, one last question, if I may. When it comes to your work in the telecom sector, what are the main trends that are driving change, and how do you take those into account in your work, Martin?
Well, the launch of 5G services globally has had a tremendously positive impact on providers' ability to offer new services and launch into new areas of entertainment, of home security, of business tools and services. So that's driving just a lot of change in who are my customers and what do I have to know about them, and what are my competitors and what do I have to know about them. So data is absolutely essential, and having the best access to your data through visual tools, through automation tools, as Pete has mentioned, is very critical. That's enormous. And then, of course, I think it goes without saying that the pandemic has had an impact on our workforce. We are working remotely, many of us still, and possibly for the near term or even the long term. And so how do I provide the best tools to my internal employees? Tools that still give them access to the data that they need to do their jobs, but also can rely on a lot of cloud-based automation and workflows. So we are doing collaborative tools. You're seeing our Teams capability being embedded into every application that we offer. As I mentioned, a lot around our artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. Our hands-free technology, because that's necessary if you're going to be working remotely. You need to be able to have robotics or other types of tools that can give you the data. So these are enormously huge trends for the telecom, but I think they're tremendously positive, and they lead me feeling very bullish about the future for telecom if the telecom industry can, I think, move quickly to transform digitally, take advantage of the technologies that are there, and not be scared to sort of try new things. I think experimentation is very important. Our customer T-Mobile is a great experimenter of creating bespoke, unique applications that do lots of different things. And I love to see the industry be a little bit more risky in looking at ways to delight their customers.
Martin, Pete, thank you very much indeed.